When my world faded back into existence, the first thing I noticed was the familiar drone of a classroom buzzing with hushed excitement. I was sitting at my desk, the light from the large art studio window falling across my hands, which were resting on my digital drawing tablet. After a lifetime of agony that ended in the cold, final embrace of a bathtub filled with my own blood, this ordinary scene felt both impossibly mundane and profoundly miraculous. It took me a moment to understand, to truly grasp that I had been given a second chance. The air, which I had last felt as a crushing weight on my dying lungs, now filled them with a clean, sharp scent of turpentine and possibility. "You're definitely going to take first place again, Maya." The voice, bright and full of cheerful confidence, belonged to a friend sitting beside me. It sliced through my days, a line I remembered with chilling clarity. That simple, well-meaning sentence was a harbinger of the disaster that had torn my previous life apart. "Overconfidence isn't a good thing," I mumbled, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. It was a lesson I had learned through unimaginable pain. I glanced at my phone, and the date displayed on the screen confirmed my impossible reality. I was back, 1 week before the national painting competition. A wave of emotion so powerful it felt like grief washed over me, and my eyes began to burn with unshed tears. All around me, my classmates were looking in my direction, their faces filled with a genuine admiration that now felt like a curse. They offered thumbs ups and showered me with the kind of praise that had once been my greatest source of pride. "That's our pixel pedal for you," one of them said, using the online handle I went by. "With you in the running, you'll bring honor to the school again." Another chimed in a national competition like this, your piece is guaranteed to be number one. I can't wait to see it." Under my online alias, I had built a respectable following, sharing my illustrations and taking on several commercial projects. An editor had already been in touch. My first art book was slated for publication in the near future. My life was, by all accounts, on the verge of taking off. Lost in the haze of my resurrected memories, I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. It was my art teacher, his face beaming with a pride so pure it made my stomach twist into a knot. "I have total faith in you for this competition, Maya," he said, his hands resting on my shoulders. "I've seen the work you've been doing, and you've reached a whole new level. We're all just waiting for you to take that top prize." The weight of his hands felt less like a gesture of support and more like the heavy shackles of a future I desperately needed to avoid. What a terrible shame it was that in the life I had just escaped, I hadn't won a single award. Far from it, I was disqualified in disgrace, my name dragged through the mud and branded with the indelible stain of plagiarism. The memory was so vivid, it felt like being plunged into ice water. My teacher and classmates, who had only tried to defend me, were also caught in the crossfire of the brutal cyberbullying campaign. When the mountain of fabricated evidence against me surfaced, my teacher was implicated and hounded by the online mob until he was forced to resign, his career destroyed. The hateful words echoed in my mind, each one a venomous sting. "Plagiarist freak. You got famous by sucking other people's blood. Why don't you just die? We already dug up your real identity. Just you wait. Karma's coming for you." My breathing grew shallow and rapid. I dug my fingernails into my palm, the sharp, grounding pain a necessary anchor to the present moment. That pain also brought someone else to the forefront of my mind. My boyfriend, Leo. He was constantly talking about his sister, Clara. They weren't related by blood, but their bond was exceptionally close. With a mother who was a world-renowned artist and a father who was a respected university professor, Clara was the school's undisputed golden girl. She was the kind of person who should have existed in a completely different universe from me, a girl from an ordinary background. Yet, in my previous life, it was Clara who had orchestrated my downfall, producing the meticulously crafted evidence of my plagiarism that nailed me to a cross of public shame. But all of those illustrations, every single design, had been born from my own imagination. I had spent countless nights hunched over my desk, my back aching as I drew them, stroke by painstaking stroke. How could they have been plagiarized? I refused to believe it was possible. Back then, I had examined the so-called proof over and over, and the sight had stunned me into silence. The drawings were nearly identical to mine. The content, the style, even the creation times logged in the file data. The only difference was that some of her versions were dated as being finished even earlier than my own. My mind reeled. How could my own work, both the pieces I had published and the ones still sitting on my hard drive, have been completed by someone else before I even created them? Faced with such damning proof, my arguments had crumbled. My heart began to pound in my chest, a frantic drumbeat of resurrected fear. I stared at the half-finished painting on my computer screen, the very same piece that had been at the center of the storm. With a hand that trembled uncontrollably, I moved the cursor and clicked delete, watching my work vanish into the digital ether. Still feeling a profound sense of unease, I shut down the computer entirely. If this piece was destined to be stolen and used against me, then I would simply have to change my entire approach. I would create something completely new in a style no one had ever seen from me before. I told myself that this time nothing could possibly go wrong. The sinking feeling in my stomach told me otherwise. The situation felt eerily similar to my last life, only this time everything was happening a week earlier. With the terrible foresight of my past experience, I couldn't help but be on high alert. A few days later, after I'd completed the line art for my new piece, a familiar tingling sensation crawled up my spine. It was a premonition of dread. Sure enough, Clara updated her social media status. The post was accompanied by a picture of her own screen showing a drawing in progress. Her caption read, "Thanks for all the concern. Latest progress. The line art is now complete." Could the world truly be this coincidental? Staring at what was unmistakably my original work mirrored on her screen, I remembered her performance in my past life. I recalled her tearfully denouncing me, telling the world I had plagiarized her work for years and had repeatedly threatened her in private to keep her silent. When she and Leo appeared on camera together, her beautiful, tear-streaked face instantly won the sympathy of millions. But her act wasn't enough. She even brought her parents, the respected artist and professor, to authenticate her fraudulent claims. They meticulously compared my work and her work side by side in a high-profile livestream that drew a massive audience. The comments had been a deluge of hatred. "I can't believe that bitch built her whole reputation on stealing from others. Poor, kind-hearted Clara. People like her should just die. If something bad is going to happen, it should happen to her and her parents. The whole family can go to hell together." I still didn't understand why. Why would Clara fabricate such elaborate lies just to destroy me? In my past life, I had desperately tried to clear my name, even attempting to file a police report to prove my innocence. But faced with the overwhelming evidence she had manufactured and the anonymous nature of the online abuse, the police said their hands were tied. At the peak of the cyberbullying campaign, while I was trapped in a living nightmare, Clara won first place in the competition. The day a photograph of her holding the trophy appeared online, I went to confront her in person. I never even made it to her door. The security guards at her luxury apartment complex chased me away. A picture of me lurking near her home was snapped by a passerby and uploaded to the internet, where people immediately speculated that I was there to seek revenge. Clara's only response was a post with 3 simple words: "I'm so scared." Those 3 words were all it took to seal my fate. My home address and all of my personal information were leaked online. A group of extremist netizens, whipped into a frenzy, showed up at my house to teach me a lesson. They threw a lit Molotov cocktail through our living room window. My parents were innocent victims of a hatred that was never meant for them. After the fire was extinguished, I saw the desperate, blackened handprints they had left on the walls, a final, silent scream. A deep, cold hatred surged within me at the memory, and my hands clenched into tight fists. I had to find out what was really happening. As I was lost in thought, the conversation of 2 people walking past my desk drifted over. "Oh my God, did you hear? Clara is starting her painting over. I feel so bad for her." I heard her new piece has a totally different style, a whole new way of expressing herself. The other replied, "That plagiarist is so shameless. Are they specifically targeting Clara? There are only 3 days left before the deadline. Who can start over now?" The first voice sighed, "But if it's Clara, maybe she can do it." Hearing this, I felt as if I had been struck over the head. I stared blankly into space, unable to process their words for a long moment. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, only to see a new message from a classmate. The suspicion in their tone was impossible to ignore. Maya, did you plagiarize someone? I saw Clara's new concept art today, and it's exactly the same as yours. Just tell me the truth. In that moment, standing in the middle of the art room, it felt like I had been struck by lightning. My draft, it had been stolen again. My heart pounded against my ribs like a frantic drum. I stood frozen, a chill running down my spine, as the memories of being insulted and bullied in my past life came flooding back. My first instinct was to run, to escape. I couldn't figure out where I had gone wrong. I had meticulously checked my computer for spyware and my dorm room for anything out of place. My new drawing was just a rough sketch. I hadn't even started thinking about the color palette yet. Yet, in just one day, Clara had already surpassed my progress. When I saw her pinned post announcing that she would finish the entire piece that night, a wave of profound powerlessness washed over me. People have a natural sympathy for the underdog, but in this story, she had cast me as the villain. Compared to my ordinary background, Clara came from a wealthy and influential family. She was beautiful, talented, and privileged. No one would ever believe that someone like her would need to plagiarize a no-name artist like me. And yet it was this very person who had stolen my ideas and all my work, then had the audacity to turn around and accuse me of being the thief. Beneath Clara's latest progress update, a new comment suddenly appeared, rocketing to the top of the thread and pushing the post into the spotlight. Hey guys, I think I know who's plagiarizing Clara, and here's something terrifying. I think she's still doing it, and her progress is perfectly in sync with Clara's. The second those words appeared, the comment section exploded before Clara even had a chance to respond. My hand trembled so violently that my phone slipped from my grasp, clattering to the floor. As I bent down to pick it up, a new notification popped up. Clara had replied to the top comment. Thank you all for your concern. I'm sure the person who is doing this will see this post and won't dare to do it again. I'll be updating my progress constantly. Feel free to follow my journey. I glanced at the image she had posted. When I saw a sliver of exposed line work in the corner of her canvas, I froze. I rushed back to my dorm, my heart hammering in my ears. The room was empty, the only sound my own ragged breathing. Gasping for air, I hurriedly opened my computer and pulled up my file, comparing it side by side with the image from her post. A few minutes later, a chill ran through me so intense that the hair on my arms stood on end. They were identical. The composition, the details, the similarity was at least 80%. This wasn't just plagiarism anymore, it was essentially the same painting. But this was a draft I had finished less than 24 hours ago. To avoid being copied again, I had physically torn up the paper line art and scanned my computer for viruses beforehand. I hadn't even used my own laptop to work on it, opting for a secure computer in the school library. Sitting in my chair, I felt like I'd been plunged into an icy abyss, struggling for every breath. Was there something I was missing? I hadn't seen Leo or Clara these past few days, and my roommate wasn't around when I was drawing. It was safe to say that besides me, absolutely no one had seen this drawing. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen. The sky outside my window grew dark. When my roommate finally opened the door, I dropped my hands from the keyboard. "Oh my God, Maya, how long have you been sitting here?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "Don't tell me you've been drawing this whole time. Have you even eaten dinner?" I heard her gasp behind me. The moment the computer screen went dark, a wave of hunger washed over me, and I realized I had been at my desk for 7 hours straight. I managed a weak smile at my roommate, double-checked that my computer was secure one last time, and, feeling a small sense of relief, headed out to the cafeteria. But just as I started to relax, having quickly finished my new piece and ready to finally eat, my phone buzzed with a notification. Clara had updated her progress again. The post showed her standing in front of her computer, smiling and making a peace sign for the camera. A digital clock on the screen displayed the current time. When I saw the painting she was posing with, the spoon in my hand dropped back into my soup with a clatter. At that exact same time, a familiar sweet voice called out from behind me. "Maya, you're eating here too? Let's sit together." My phone screen was still lit up. The person who had just posted the update was now standing right in front of me, smiling with an unnerving innocence, her eyes looking straight through me. Clara stood there with her perfect makeup and empty hands. Behind her, Leo held her phone and her handbag. When he looked up from his phone, our eyes met. I was the first to look away, my gaze dropping back to the words on my screen, utterly speechless. This time, Clara had also finished her painting. According to the timestamp, she had completed it a full half hour before I did. Thanks for all the encouragement, everyone. I've finished my piece. Leo has been so busy lately, it's rare that he has free time today. You're not mad, are you, Maya? Clara snatched her bag from Leo's hand, feigning a hint of panic as she spoke with painstaking caution. Before I could even open my mouth to respond, Leo, who was staring intently at her, spoke up, his tone utterly dismissive of me. What are you talking about, Clara? Why would Maya be mad at you? She has no right to be. She can't compare to you. I couldn't help but clench my fists under the table. Pushing down the swirling vortex of confusion and anger, I forced myself to act as if I knew nothing. I offered them a cool invitation to join me. Want to grab a bite together? A pair of condescending eyes landed on me. Clara covered her mouth and giggled delicately. I'll just have some water. A girl's got to watch her figure. Her hand traced the line of her slender waist, and Leo's gaze was immediately captivated. He stared openly for a few seconds before telling her, right in front of me, that she looked perfect just the way she was. Basking in his adoration, Clara casually asked about my entry for the competition, a flicker of unconcealed triumph in her eyes. I haven't left my room all day, she said, pointing to the non-existent dark circles under her eyes and pouting. I've been pulling all-nighters for this competition. At her words, my hand paused midair. When she asked about my own progress, my heart sank. After a few seconds, I finally spoke. Actually, I don't think it's perfect yet. I'm planning to tweak the details a bit more. I need to revise it again. Clara's expression didn't change. She just nodded, appearing completely normal. The three of us had just settled down when a group of guys approached our table, their faces alight with excitement. You're Clara, right? You're even more beautiful than in your photos, one of them gushed. We saw what happened online. We support you. You have to expose that plagiarism creep. If you need anything at all, just let us know. We'll definitely stand up for you. The boys were blushing. Clara puffed out her chest slightly and smiled sweetly at them. Wow, with your support, I'll definitely do my best, she said, her voice full of sincerity. Maybe the person who plagiarized has their own difficulties. I knew she was a wolf in sheep's clothing, and she had no intention of letting me go. The atmosphere grew tense. Seeing other men fawning over Clara, Leo couldn't sit still. If Clara needs help, it's not your place to step in, he snorted. I'm all she needs. The situation was already awkward, but then a sharp female voice cut through the silence from behind. If you hadn't said anything, I would have thought you were Clara's boyfriend. Too bad you already have a girlfriend, and she's so plain. The girl who had come in with the group of guys stood with her arms crossed, looking at me with utter contempt. Seriously, the way you stick to Clara, who knows what your real intentions are? Oh, right, isn't your girlfriend that famous artist from our school? Who's to say you didn't steal Clara's designs for her? I heard that as soon as the news about Clara being plagiarized came out, she was busy changing her draft. If you have nothing to hide, why rush to change your finished work? The rumor had already spread online. Even though it only used my initials, everyone knew who they were talking about. This group was just short of shouting my name. Clara lifted her chin proudly, basking in their praise, her eyes on me holding a flicker of unconcealed malice. Leo told me to leave, not to sit here and ask for trouble. But I knew if I left now, it would be an admission of guilt. This time, I couldn't run away anymore. Steeling myself, I dodged Leo's hand as he tried to push me away and spoke directly to Clara, my voice trembling slightly. Clara, I want to see your competition piece. A glass of ice water suddenly splashed across my head and down my face. The girl who had spoken up threw her glass at me, her face contorted with rage. You bitch! In your dreams! I was drenched and humiliated. Laughter erupted from the surrounding tables. Cora covered her mouth, and I couldn't tell if she was shocked or smiling. After the girl finished cursing me out, the corners of Clara's lips curled upwards. "Okay, I trust you, Maya," she said, confusing her supporters. But Clara wasn't flustered. She opened her laptop for me to see and even began dabbing the water off my clothes in a sickening show of intimacy. "Maya wouldn't plagiarize me. We're very good friends." A wave of contemptuous murmurs went through the crowd as they pointed fingers at me. I buried my head, forcing myself to look at the screen. I stared in disbelief. How was this possible? Why did Clara seem to know my every thought, no matter what I did? The moment I saw the image, a shiver ran down my spine. It was too similar, an 80% match. Besides a few minor details, the overall composition was identical to mine. And most importantly, I checked the file's timestamp. She had finished it an hour before me. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. I was speechless. Clara's hand rested on my shoulder as she asked with a syrupy smile, "So what do you think?" What did I think? Meeting her gaze, I dug my fingernails into my palm, feeling dazed. After a few seconds, I looked away and said decisively, "It's not that great. This piece has a lot of flaws." The moment I finished speaking, the people at the table erupted in a cacophony of insults. How can she be so shameless? What the hell are you talking about, you plagiarist freak? I never gave Clara a straight answer. I simply stood up and walked out, weathering the storm of their verbal abuse. The second I got back to my dorm, the pent-up emotions finally exploded. My desk and cabinets had clearly been rummaged through. The shredded pieces of my draft, which I had thrown in the trash can, were gone. I opened my phone and my direct messages had been completely flooded. Some self-proclaimed crusader for justice had broken into my dorm looking for evidence, found the scraps in my trash, and painstakingly taped the draft back together. That hand-drawn line art was now all over the internet. The proof that I had plagiarized Clara was now irrefutable. "Cora said she finished that draft 2 days ago," one comment read. "This girl must have just seen it and spent all day today hiding in her dorm, secretly copying it. It's disgusting." I didn't need to open the messages to know what they said. I stared at my phone and started to laugh, a hollow, bitter sound, but then tears of frustration squeezed out of my eyes. A sense of powerlessness washed over me, a terrifying mixture of fear and confusion. I took a deep breath, remembering the uncontrollable rage from my depression in my past life, and sighed. I thought coming back would change things, but no matter how I struggled, I always ended up back where I started. Looking at the digital painting on my computer, I silently put on my glasses. After a long while, I dropped my hands and wearily rubbed my eyes. When my roommates came back with late-night snacks, they saw me and fell silent, their gazes shifting away awkwardly. "Maya, we heard that you—" one of them started, her voice trailing off. "Even though we believe you, the evidence online." Their eyes were fixed on the computer screen behind me. When they saw the image I had actually been working on, they fell silent for a moment, then gasped in amazement. "Oh my God, Maya, this one is absolutely beautiful. How could you possibly be a plagiarist? If you submit this, you'll definitely win." Watching them crowd around my computer, full of praise, I calmly closed the laptop and shook my head. "No, I've decided to withdraw from the competition. I'm quitting." The dorm room fell silent. My roommates gathered around me, confused. "Maya, you have the talent. Why? Just because of some online rumors?" I pulled out my suitcase from under my bed and started packing silently. Hearing their words stirred a mix of emotions in me, but this time I resolutely shook my head. I've thought it through. The competition isn't the most important thing. This whole thing has seriously affected my life. I have to quit. The anxiety that had been plaguing me for so long finally vanished. The moment I decided to give up, I felt a sense of relief, though my body was incredibly exhausted. I called my academic advisor to arrange a leave of absence. This time I decided to give myself a break first. I would take a month to rest properly and, most importantly, spend time with my parents. As for Clara, let her have her victory. Sitting on the high-speed train heading home, I saw her latest post and couldn't help but feel a little dazed. "Successfully submitted my entry. The previous version was a bit unpolished, but I've revised it. Wait for my good news, everyone." Seeing the post, I just smiled. The familiar sight of my house at the end of the street made my eyes turn red. I tilted my head back, trying hard not to let my parents see that anything was wrong. "Why is my little girl back?" my mom cried, rushing out to meet me. "You didn't even say anything. I would have had your dad pick you up." My parents saw me from a distance. They didn't ask why I was back or what had happened. They just told me to put my things down, wash my hands, and get ready for a good meal. The tears I had managed to hold back outside the door now streamed down my face uncontrollably. "Mom, Dad," I said between sobs, "I want to take a good rest. I want to go to the hospital for a full checkup." After my experience with depression in my past life, I cherished my healthy body even more in this one. The first thing I did when I got home was go to the hospital for a complete physical. After several visits, I looked at the few abnormal results on my lab report and my expression darkened. After some further tests, I took the medical reports and left the hospital. When I returned home, I gave my parents a huge hug, a real smile finally appearing on my face. "Dad, Mom, let's the three of us go to Dalian for a vacation." They stared at me blankly, the suggestion not quite sinking in. The next morning, the three of us were on a plane. The money I had saved up over the years from freelance work was for a moment just like this. Feeling the sea breeze on my face, the gloom in my heart was swept away. We ate local seafood, walked along the silver sand beach at sunset, and I held my parents' hands, my face beaming. This was the most relaxed I had ever felt. Of course, Leo and Clara wouldn't let me go that easily. His texts and calls were endless, asking why I dropped out, why I took a leave of absence without telling him. "Maya, you are so selfish," one text read. "How could you just quit like that?" Even Clara sent me a message. "Zoe, why did you stop drawing? And what about the competition?" Surfacing from a snorkel, my good mood was completely ruined. I blocked both of their numbers and all their social media accounts, then peacefully enjoyed my vacation. The sea breeze and Dalian seemed to blow away all my troubles. After deleting their contact info, I took a calm look at the nasty comments online. Clara is a true genius. Good riddance to the plagiarist. Let's expose her, dox her, and make an example of her. Reading these comments, I took a bite of a freshly baked pastry, my heart no longer rippling with any emotion. I was now more certain than ever that Clara was behind all of this. Even if I didn't compete, she had no intention of letting me off the hook. Remembering the tragic fate of my parents, my eyes went cold. I tapped away on my phone, and under the most popular post praising Clara's competition piece, I posted a long comment. "Does this piece seem familiar to anyone?" The rest of the comment was long, detailing stylistic similarities to several famous international artists. At the end, I made sure to tag a few of the competition judges. Amidst the sea of praise, my comment stood out immediately. "Get lost, hater. Are you another contestant trying to sabotage her?" But then, another comment appeared. But what they said, it does remind me of something. An hour later, I received a message on my phone from a stranger. It was an art blogger who recognized the plagiarized elements. It had begun. I couldn't understand why someone like Clara, who lacked for nothing, would target me so viciously. But none of that mattered anymore. Looking at the private message on my phone, all my hatred dissipated, replaced by a cold resolve. Whatever methods she used against me, they were useless now. The moment I saw her final submitted artwork, I was 100% certain she had plagiarized my work, the work I had been creating when my roommates walked in. Because I had quit the competition, she had copied it even more brazenly, pursuing perfection down to the last detail. She didn't know that during my final revision, I had prepared a special gift just for her. I had intentionally woven in distinctive elements from half a dozen famous and very litigious artists. I hoped she would like it. Time flew by. When my parents and I returned from our trip, Leo started calling me from a series of unknown numbers. It got so annoying that I finally answered. A roar came from the other end. "Maya, what did you do? Are you trying to kill Clara? You just wait, I'm not finished with you." I smiled calmly, hung up the phone, and opened my social media app. The moment I got his call, I knew my gift had been delivered. The app exploded with countless notifications. But this time, they weren't attacking me. They were all tearing Clara down. My final, perfect revision had finally paid off. Clara was in serious trouble. Her work had been reported for plagiarism by multiple people, exposed by several art bloggers, and she was officially disqualified from the competition. The news shocked everyone. When the official evidence was released, people couldn't stay silent anymore. It was the same group of familiar classmates, only this time they were cursing out someone else. What genius! Her competition piece is just a Frankenstein's monster of things stolen from here and there. I can't believe this is the person who pushed Maya out and embarrassed our school. Maya was done so dirty. Reading these comments, I lay in bed and burst out laughing. Clara's account was suspended. Leo tried to defend her, but his attempts failed, and he was verbally demolished. This time, she could get a taste of her own medicine. My childhood friend Sarah came over, looking me up and down suspiciously. I had told her about the strange things that had been happening. "That classmate of yours," she said, stroking her chin, her brow furrowed. "She knows what you're thinking. She even knows what you're going to draw. That can't be right. Let me take a look around your room. I have a really good sixth sense, trust me." She walked around my room, tut-tutting. After a thorough search yielded nothing, she bent down to check under the bed. "This is so weird," she muttered, "but I keep getting this feeling like I'm being watched." Her gaze swept over the area directly across from my desk and landed on the backpack I habitually hung on my closet door. "Maya, do you always hang your backpack there?" After I said yes, she took down the plushy keychain hanging from the zipper. A few seconds later, she handed the toy to me. "Feel this," she said. "There's something hard inside." When I pulled out the miniature camera from within the plushie's stuffing, I froze. Leo had given me this keychain casually when we first started dating. I never imagined he had targeted me from the very beginning. No wonder Clara knew my every move. Sarah urged me to go to the police immediately, but I stopped her. "Not yet," I said. "Let's wait a little longer." I needed to wait just a little bit more. As I suspected, Leo and Clara had a massive falling out. After being exposed, Clara couldn't handle the blowback and immediately blamed everything on Leo, crying to anyone who would listen. "It was all Leo. He made me do it. He told me to copy Maya." Who knew Maya had no real talent, so her painting was full of stolen ideas? No matter how much of a simp he was, Leo couldn't stomach that kind of slander. Their arguments escalated. The final one happened in the hallway of their apartment building. "You're just a dog I keep around," Clara shrieked at him, her voice echoing. "You got close to her for my sake. And for what? When you drugged Maya, didn't you promise I would definitely win first place?" A sharp slap landed across Clara's face. She stared at Leo in disbelief. "Are you crazy?" she gasped, but another slap followed. "Shut up," Leo hissed, his eyes bloodshot. "If you hadn't been so high profile, how would Maya have found out?" "You idiot. Don't you dare mention the drugging. Who do you think I did all that for?" With their biggest secret exposed, Leo was furious. After being slapped twice, Clara couldn't bear the humiliation and screamed that she wanted to cut ties with him for good. Leo panicked. "Don't you fucking think about it?" he roared. "I'm going to be tied to you for the rest of my life." Just as he lunged for her, I arrived with 2 police officers. He and Clara were tangled in a physical fight. There was a clear power difference. Right in front of all of us, he kicked Clara hard, sending her tumbling down the flight of stairs from the doorway. Seeing her land face down and motionless at the bottom, Leo's face went deathly pale. But before he could react, his eyes met ours. Seeing the police officers behind me, Leo collapsed to the ground. Watching him being put into the police car, I finally felt a sense of complete relief. It turns out my depression in my last life wasn't something that just happened. The abnormal results from my medical checkup showed trace amounts of long-term antidepressant use in my system. A normal person should never take that kind of medication without a prescription. Whenever he had the chance, Leo had been giving me small doses. This time, I had heard him confess with my own ears. And besides that, there was the matter of the hidden camera he installed. The whole thing started because Leo and Clara saw my talent and wanted to use me to pave the way for her fame. As they were taken away in an ambulance and a police car, respectively, Leo shot me a look full of pure hatred. Seeing that look, I turned to the police officer and said clearly, I refuse any settlement. I want him to do hard time. Amidst Leo's furious curses, I was in an excellent mood. Clara injured her spine and leg in the fall. After she recovered, she walked with a permanent, almost comical limp. The damage was for life. Unable to handle the blow, she was expelled from school and had a mental breakdown, eventually ending up in a psychiatric hospital. Leo was also expelled. The news about him drugging me and secretly installing a hidden camera was posted online, finally clearing my name completely. A long prison sentence was what he deserved. There's a competition every year, but there are no do-overs in life. In this life, I successfully escaped the fate of my previous one. By the end of the year, my first art book was successfully published. I focused all my energy on my studies. The following year, I entered the competition again. This time, I won first place. Standing on the award stage, holding the trophy, I thought of Clara one last time. A privileged upbringing had given her a shortcut to the top, but it also made her more susceptible to temptation. The higher she climbed without a solid foundation to support her, the more inevitable her fall became. Looking at my family and friends smiling in the audience, I tilted my head up slightly towards the bright lights. Today was another beautiful day.